Hello everyone. We are very happy to welcome you to this day 3 of our 5-day webinar series on Extensions 101. Today, we will be covering an important feature available in the Zoho developer platform called as Connected Apps, which helps you to handle widgets. I am Nandita and I also have Lavanya and Vinod with us during the session. We are from the Zoho Marketplace team and we will be taking you through this webinar series. If you encounter any difficulties or have any questions during the session, you can post them in the chat window and we'll address them. Or if there's anything in particular that you require immediate clarification with respect to the ongoing topic, feel free to unmute and raise your query. So with this information set, let's start with a quick recap on the topics we had covered in our day 2 session. So in our last session, we had covered the following topics. We saw the connector feature available in Zoho Developer Platform to handle authorized connection between Zoho CRM and another application. Followed by which, we got into the connectors feature in detail, where we went through the steps involved in creating a connector, namely creating and authorizing a connector, adding the necessary connector APIs, and then publishing it and associating the connector with an extension. We finally concluded with an example use case demo, which detailed the steps involved in creating a connector to establish a connection between Zoho CRM and Zoho Mail. So today, we'll be exploring another important feature available in the Zoho Developer Platform to handle widgets. The topics that we will be covering in today's session are as follows. What are widgets and how are they beneficial? When and where can widgets be used? We will then see the feature available in the Zoho Developer Platform to handle widgets, after which we will check out the steps involved in creating widgets in an extension, and then we'll finally conclude with an example use case demo. So now let's get into these topics one after the other. We all know that integrating applications helps us perform data transactions across the applications seamlessly. However, having a customized UI to incorporate features with your own design allows you to communicate better with users, thereby enhancing the user experience. So widgets are embeddable UI components that you can design and have complete control over. They help to contextually integrate with third-party applications and perform certain functionalities using data from the third-party applications. They also help extend the existing functionality of your CRM by providing a user interface that adds new features to Zoho CRM. So when and where can these widgets be used? As mentioned earlier, a widget can be used to enhance the functionalities of Zoho CRM by either accentuating its existing features or using data from third-party applications. So let's see a couple of scenarios of how widgets are used to enhance existing CRM functionalities by adding new features or by integrating with other applications and using their data. So as the first example, let's see how widgets can be used to extend the existing functionality of Zoho CRM. Consider a simple scenario in which a Zoho CRM sales representative is handling a customer case. The sales representative wants to see if a similar problem has already been addressed in another case and if any of the solutions can be applied to the current case. So how simple would it be if the sales representative could enter a search keyword and all the relevant cases with your solutions are populated? So if the sales representative finds a relevant solution for the current case, they can go ahead and simply update the same solution for the current case as well. So in this scenario, a widget can be easily designed to input a search keyword in order to search and retrieve the data based on our needs and requirements. Now, let's look at another example of how widgets can be used when an application is integrated with Zoho CRM. So assume you're a sales representative in Zoho CRM who has integrated a project management application to manage your task. You want to create a task in your project management application every time a new deal is created in Zoho CRM, so that you can assign and manage any task related activities associated with that deal in order to close and win that deal. So in this case, you can simply create a widget that allows you to enter information relevant to creating a new task in your project management application. And with the click of a button, a new task can be created for that deal in your project management application. So this gives you the ability to create a task with your own details and deadline from within Zoho CRM itself. So in these kind of scenarios, where you want to embed some contextual UI that enhances existing Zoho CRM functionalities, you can go ahead and build widgets. Next, let's move on to the support provided by the Zoho Developer Platform to build these widgets. So the Zoho Developer Platform allows you to build widgets that contextually integrate with the Zoho CRM by providing a feature called as connected apps. So let's go to our Zoho Developer Platform and see the feature connected apps. So I'm going to enter into Sigma, which is the Zoho Developer Platform for building extensions. I'm going to go ahead and choose my workspace. And I've already created a sample CRM extension in order to explore our connected apps feature. So this connected apps feature, which is available over here, is the feature provided by the Zoho CRM developer platform that will allow you to associate a widget with the Zoho CRM extension. So it essentially serves as a bridge for a widget to be associated inside an extension. So in order to associate a widget as a connected app inside your extension, you will first have to build or create the widget. So next we're going to go ahead and see the steps that are involved in building a widget so that it can be associated as a connected app inside the extension. So let me go back to my presentation where we are going to go ahead and see the steps that are involved in building a widget. So there are three main steps involved in building a widget, namely setting up the development environment, creating a widget project, and then embedding that widget into your Zoho CRM. So let's explore each of these steps in detail. So the first step is to set up the development environment, which includes downloading the Node.js, Node Package Manager, and then installing the command line interface. So this Node.js serves as the base platform for creating a widget and is the JavaScript environment that allows us to execute our JavaScript code. We also need the Node Package Manager, which is the default package manager for Node.js and includes all the necessary packages for creating a widget. So you can go ahead and download Node.js and a Node Package Manager from the link which is available in the slide. So along with this, we will also require the Z command line interface, which is the Zoho Extension Toolkit command line interface, to be installed, which will enable you to build, pack and test your extensions. So we can install our Z CLI using the command that is displayed in the screen. So along with the downloads of Node.js and NPM and the installation of our Z CLI, we will also require some JS SDKs which holds the Zoho CRM's API bundle. So let me enter into this link and let's check it out. So these are the JS SDKs that are provided by Zoho CRM that essentially allow your JavaScript code to communicate with the extension. So while creating our widget project, which is our next step, you can either use this CDN URL or you can download the embedded app.min.js file, which will be available in our GitHub, in order to consume and use these JS SDKs as part of your widget. So the Zoho CRM service offers these JS SDKs for your JavaScript code to communicate with your extension or your application. So you can go ahead and consume these JS SDKs as part of your widget and enable your code to communicate with your application. So we have already shared these links and resources with you earlier in mail. For those who didn't get a chance to look into it, these resources have also been dropped as part of the chat right now. So using those links, you can easily complete the first step, which is setting up the development environment. We have already completed the development setup and kept it ready for our demo purpose. So in order to verify if these downloads and these installations were successful, we have certain commands. So let's go to our terminal and check that out now. So I'm going to go to my terminal. And now let's see if the downloads of Node.js Node Package Manager and the installation of the ZCLI were successful. So you can use the command node space -v to check the version of the Node.js that has been installed in your system. Similarly, you can use the command npm space -v to check the version of the Node Package Manager that has been installed or downloaded in your system. So we also saw that we have installed the ZCLI, right? So in order to check if the installation of Z was successful, you can simply use the command Z. So this, while you use the Z command, it will display you certain basic options and commands. And these are the commands which we'll be using for our next step, that is going ahead and creating a widget project. So now that we are done with our first step, that is setting up the development environment, the second step is that we are going to go ahead and create a widget project. So in order to create a widget project, while we used the Z command, we saw that certain basic options were displayed as part of the Z command. So those are the commands that I have, taken and displayed it in my slide. So these are the commands that will be used to create a widget project, validate that project, and pack your widget project. So the Z init command will be used to create a widget project, and you can go ahead and add your project resources that are necessary. And then the Z validate command will be used to validate the widget project that you have created. So after you have created a widget project and validated it, you can use the Z pack command. So this Z pack command will pack the entire widget project and provide you a zipped file. The zipped file that is provided as part of the ZPack command will be associated as a connected app in the extension. So we saw that the connected app feature is going to be a bridge between the widget that we are building and our extension, right? So how does that bridge get achieved is that this zipped file that we are getting as part of the ZPack command will be associated to that connected app feature in our extension. So along with these three basic commands, we also have another command which is zrun. So in case you want to check your widgets functionalities in a testing environment, then you can use the zrun command to have a local Zoho server running. So using the local Zoho server, you can go ahead and check your widget functionalities in a testing environment. So now let's go back to our terminal and explore each of these commands in detail. So I'm going to go back to my terminal. And as I had mentioned, the first command to create a widget project is zinit. So let me use that command over here. So once I enter the command, you can see that I'm prompted to select the Zoho service for which we are building the widget. So since we are going to go ahead and build the widget for Zoho CRM, I'll be choosing the service as Zoho CRM over here. So the process of building the widget remains the same for the other services that are displayed in the drop-down list as well. So depending on the service for which you're going to go ahead and build the widget, you can choose the service from this list. Since we are going to do it for Zoho CRM, let me go ahead and choose Zoho CRM. So once I choose Zoho CRM, it prompts me to enter a project name. So let me enter a project name. So once I provide a name for my widget project, you can see that the all the node package manager and the library dependencies that are required are being initialized and installed, and a widget project has been created for me as part of ZCLI. So there are certain commands that are being displayed as part of the CLI itself, which will help me navigate to the location of my widget project. So the command cd space the project name essentially means changing my directory location to the widget project's location. So let me use that command. And now you can see that we have entered into the location of a widget project. So now that we have created a widget project using the zinit command, let's see the folder structure of how the widget project is present. So I'm going to my system, and over here, this is the widget project that we had created recently. So the sample widget test demo is the widget project that we had created. And these are the default files and folders that are available while you create a widget project using ZCLI. So as part of these files and folders, this app folder, right? This is the folder that is going to essentially hold the project resources for your use case requirement. So when you're going to implement a use case and you want to add some UI related files or your code related files, you will have to go ahead and add those resources as part of this app folder. So but by default, when you create a widget project using the ZCLI, we have two files present inside the app folder. One is translation and other is the widget.html file. So this widget.html file is the default UI file that is created while a widget project is created using the ZCLI. So this is the UI or the HTML file that is available by default when you create a widget project. So let me click on this widget.html file. So this is the default UI that is available when you create a widget project using ZCLI. So now that we have actually explored the zinit command to create a widget project, let's go ahead and explore the next command, which is zvalidate. So we created a widget project and then we saw the files and folders that are available inside a widget project by default. So now I'm going to use the next command, which is zvalidate, which will help me to validate my widget project files. So this will, validate all my widget project resources, and then it has, displayed a message saying that the validation rules have passed successfully. So once your widget is created and you have validated your widget project, the next step is packing your widget project. So in order to pack the widget, let's use the command zpack. So you can see that it displays a message saying the extension is packed successfully as this zip file in the dist folder. So earlier when we had explored the structure of our widget file, so I had mentioned the sample widget test demo was our widget project, right? So over here, these were the default files and folders that were available. This dist folder would not have been available earlier. So when you use the zpack command, a dist folder is automatically created, and inside the dist folder, the zipped file of the widget project will be populated. So this is the zipped file that we will be associating as a connected app inside our extension. So we've now created our widget project, validated it, and packed the widget project as well. So we saw there was another command, which is zrun, which will help you to enable a local Zoho server to run, right? So when does that play a role? So there might be certain scenarios where you want to test your widget functionalities in a sandbox and a testing environment. So in that case, you can use the zrun command. So this command will enable the local Zoho server and help you to test your widget functionalities in a testing environment. So now the server is running at this location. Let me just copy this and paste it in our browser. So inside our app folder, we saw that the translations folder and the widget.html file were available. And this widget.html file was the default UI file that was created while we created a widget project using the CLI. So if you click on widget.html, you can see that the UI has been rendered through the server that is up and running. So whenever you're creating a widget and you want to test your functionalities in a testing environment, then you can use this command to keep a local Zoho server running and then test your functionalities in a testing environment. So when you have actually developed your extension, published it and installed in Zoho CRM, then in that case, all the server related functionalities will be handled by the platform team at the backend. So in that scenario, the zrun command would not be needed. So whenever you want to test your functionalities in a testing environment and you require a local Zoho server, you can go ahead and use this command. So now we have covered the major commands that we had seen that were involved in creating a widget project, namely the zinit to create a widget project, zvalidate to validate your widget project, zpack which will pack the widget project and produce a zipped file which can be associated as a connected app in your extension. And then we saw the zrun command which will help you to enable a local Zoho server to test your widget functionalities in a testing environment. So now that we have actually finished with the first two steps, that is setting up the development environment and creating a widget project, the next thing is that we are going to go ahead and embed this widget inside our Zoho CRM, right? So in order to embed the widget in Zoho CRM, we have certain sections that need to be performed. So the first thing is that we will need to associate the widget that we have created as a connected app in our extension. So as I had mentioned earlier, the zipped file that we get using the zpack command will have to be associated as a connected app in the extension. So while you're associating the connected app, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to use this extension in production environment, then you'll have, in order for this widgets are essentially HTML files, right? So in order for the UI of those HTML files to be rendered, we will require a server in order to render the application. So for that, we can either choose internal or external hosting option. So let me explain about the internal and external hosting option in detail when I go to the Zoho CRM developer platform. So first we'll be associating the widget as a connected app in the extension. Then we'll be choosing the either internal or external hosting option. And then finally, initially would have just associated the widget as a connected app in the extension. But in order for that widget to appear in Zoho CRM, it will have to be embedded in one of the components in CRM, right? So there are 3 locations that are supported where you can go ahead and embed the associated widget inside your Zoho CRM. So the 3 supported locations are, it could be either done as a custom button, or it could be done as a custom related list, or it could be done as a web tab. So now let's explore these sections in detail in the Zoho CRM developer platform. So let me go to my Zoho CRM developer platform. So this is the sample extension that we had built and kept ready, right? So this was the connected apps feature, which will provide a bridge between the widget that we have built and the extension. So let us go ahead and provide the details for the connected app. Then provide a description for the connected app. And here in this hosting option, you can either choose to host your widget application using Zoho server, or you can host your widget application using the third-party server if you have one at your hand. So depending on the server where you want to host your widget application and render your UI, you can choose the internal hosting option or external hosting option. So if you choose external hosting, then you'll have to go ahead and provide the sandbox and the production URL as to where your widget application is being hosted in your web server at your end. If you're choosing external hosting option, then this will have to be done. So for our demo, we will be going ahead with internal hosting and using Zoho server in order to host our widget application and render the UI. So once you choose internal hosting, this base URL, the sandbox server URL, will be automatically populated and no changes need to be done to it. So you'll have to simply upload the app package, that is the zipped file that we had obtained while creating the widget project and packing it, right? So that zipped file will have to be uploaded in this section. So let me click on this upload app package. And as I had mentioned, inside our widget project, inside the dist folder, we have the zipped file. So let me click on that. Now the zipped file has been uploaded and associated as a connected app inside the extension. So once you have done that, you can simply go ahead and click on save. So now we've completed the first two sections. That is, we've associated the widget as a connected app in the extension and chosen the hosting option. So the final section was that we have to embed this associated widget in some component in Zoho CRM so that it can be visible in your Zoho CRM account. So there were 3 locations where you can go ahead and embed this associated widget, right? So one was a custom button, the other is a related list, and then finally we could do it as a web tab. So let me show you the places where it can be embedded and how you can embed this associated widget in that locations. So in order to do it as a custom button, that is, in order to associate your widget as a custom button, you can go ahead and click on this component section, which is available under build. Then click on this links and buttons tab and click on the create new button. So when you click on this, you'll have to go ahead and enter the details for the button that you're creating. So you can go ahead and choose the module where you want to create the button. Let me go ahead and choose leads and then provide a name for the button. Then you can provide the location where you want the button to appear in your leads module. I'm going to keep it in a leads view detail page. And then under what action you like the button to perform, since we are going to associate the widget to a button, we'll have to choose the invoke a widget option. So once I choose the invoke a widget option, you can see the sandbox URL. So the sandbox URL that was automatically populated when I created a connected app, right? So that also automatically appears over here by default. So along with this URL, you will have to provide the resource path of your UI or your HTML file of the widget project over here. So in our sample widget project that we had created, inside the app folder, we had a widget.html file, which was the default UI file that was created while you create a widget project using the CLI. So I'm going to provide that path over here. So after app, widget.html was my UI file of my sample widget project. So once I provide the resource path of the HTML or the UI file, you can see that the production URL will get automatically populated. So if you want to change the dimensions of your widget, then you can go ahead and make changes over here. I'm going to leave it as such and click on save. So now what we've done is that we have embedded the associated widget as a custom button. So this is one supported location where you can go ahead and embed your associated widget. There are 2 other locations that are supported wherein you can embed it as a related list or as a web tab. So now let's see how you can embed the associated widget as a related list. So in order to do that, just like how we did for links and buttons, you can use this component section and then click on related details. So you can either associate a widget to a related list or you could associate a function to a related list. But today, since we are doing widgets, let's go ahead and see how we can associate the widget to a related list. So click on this add widgets button. Let's provide a name for our related list. Choose the module where you want the related list to appear. And then just like how we done for the button, we are going to go ahead and provide the location of our HTML file. So the production URL is automatically populated. If you want to, change the height of your related list widget, you can go ahead and specify it over here, or you can simply click on save. So now we've also embedded the associated widget as a related list. So the final supported location is that you can associate the widget and embed it in a web tab. So in order to do it as a web tab, you can use this module section available under build and then click on this web tabs tab. Click on the create web tab button. Let's provide a name for our web tab. And we are going to associate the widget to the web tab. So choose the type as widget. Provide the location of your HTML file and then click on save. So these are the 3 locations which are supported, where you can go ahead and embed the associated widget of your extension. So depending on your use case requirement, you can choose the location where you want to go ahead and embed your widget. So now that we have embedded the widget, let's see how the embedding has appears in our Zoho CRM inside our sandbox environment. So the Zoho CRM developer platform allows you to test your extension functionalities by providing a sandbox environment. So you can use this test your extension button, which will redirect you to the sandbox of this particular extension, where you can go ahead and test your extension functionalities inside this sandbox environment. So you can create sample CRM data over here and then test your extension functionalities before you push it into production. So we have created a button we had embedded the associated widget in a button, a related list and a web tab, right? So as I mentioned earlier, if you want to test your widget functionalities in a sandbox environment, then you'll have to have some server in order to render your UI. So for that, we can use the zrun command to keep a local Zoho server running, right? So let me go ahead and use that zrun command. And now a local Zoho server is up and running. So now let's go back to my sandbox environment and check how the functionalities appear. So we had created a button in the leads module. Let me create a sample lead. So in the leads view details page, we had created a button and associated our widget, right? So now we have a local Zoho server also up and running. So let's click on the button and see if the widget's UI has been rendered. So you can see that the default UI that was available as part of the widget has been rendered through the local Zoho server that is running. So this was one location where we had embedded our associated widget. Similarly, we created a related list as part of the leads module as well. This was the related list that we had created. So you can see that the widget UI has been rendered in this location as well. And the final location where we embedded our associated widget was as a web tab. So sample widget was the web tab that we had created. So the widget UI has been rendered as part of the web tab as well. So these are the locations where you can go ahead and embed the associated widget that you have created in your extension. So depending on your use case, you can go ahead and choose the location where you want to embed your associated widget. So with this, the 3 main steps that are involved in building a widget, that is setting up the development environment, creating a widget project, then associating that widget as a connected app, and then embedding it inside Zoho CRM components are completed. So we are next going to see how widgets are helpful to provide solutions for specific business use cases. So for our example, we will be seeing a Zoho CRM extension that integrates with Zoho Assist, which is a user-friendly free remote support tool that allows you to quickly initiate secure remote support sessions. So we will explore how we can handle and solve customer cases easily by troubleshooting their problems from within Zoho CRM itself using Zoho Assist remote sessions. So in general, a support technician handles the customer's concern in the cases module of Zoho CRM. They would have had multiple conversations on possible solutions that would solve the issue. But there might be certain situations where the support technician would need control over the customer system to check the issue. So, how convenient would it be for the support technician to have a remote session with the customer to troubleshoot an issue on their end just with a click of a button from within Zoho CRM itself? So, on click of a button, we could have a widget that notifies the technician that they are about to enter into a remote session with the customer of that case, and then redirect them to that Zoho Assist remote session. So our use case is that a sales technician handles customers' concerns in the cases module of Zoho CRM. So there might be situations where the sales technician will have to go into a remote session in order to troubleshoot the customer's concern. So in order to do that, it would be really convenient if the support technician could easily, initiate a remote session with the customer of the case by just clicking on a button from within Zoho CRM itself. So on click of a button, we could, notify them with a widget saying that they are entering into a remote session with the customer of that case, and then redirect them to that particular Zoho Assist remote session so that they can go ahead and troubleshoot the customer's concern through a remote sharing session. So let's see the components that are used in order to achieve this use case. So we would be requiring two major components in order to achieve this use case. One would be a connector to be created for Zoho Assist product, and then we'll have to build a widget to initiate a remote session with the customer of the case on click of a button. So we will need the connector to be created for Zoho Assist in order to establish an authorized connection between Zoho CRM and Zoho Assist. And since Zoho Assist product supports OAuth for user authentication, connector would be the choice to establish this authorized integration. So inside our Zoho Assist connector, we'll be using one Zoho Assist API, that is Create Session API, which will allow you to create a remote session with the customer. So since widgets is our focus today, we've already created the connector and the API and kept it ready for our demo. So let me go ahead and show you that in our Zoho CRM developer platform. So this is the extension where I have gone ahead and built a connector for Zoho Assist. So in the connector section, I have a connector for Zoho Assist. And this Create Session API is the API that we'll be using for our use case. So this is the URL that is provided by Zoho Assist in order to create or initiate a remote session. So this customer email ID dynamic parameter that I've used, right? This is an optional parameter where if you use and provide a customer email ID, then an invite will be sent to the customer as well when you initiate a remote session. So for our use case, when the support technician is going to click the button and initiate a remote session with the customer, an invite will be sent to the customer as well, so that using that invite, the customer can join into the remote session with the support technician. So for that reason, we have used this dynamic parameter. And then Zoho Assist offers you two options. You can either go into a remote session with the customer, or you could go ahead with a screen sharing session with the customer. So for our use case, we are taking the remote session option. So I am passing the type in the request body as RS, which stands for remote session. So this is the connector related API details. So I've created a connector for Zoho Assist, added the API which is required, published this connector and associated it with my extension. So the connector component that is required for our use case has been completed. The next step is that we need to create a widget in order to initiate a remote session with a customer on click of a button, right? So let me go ahead and show you the components that will be used as part of the widget code logic in order to achieve our use case. So these are the essential components or the functionalities that we'll be using inside our widget code logic in order to achieve our use case. So earlier we had mentioned that we have certain JS SDKs offered by Zoho CRM that help us to that help our JavaScript code to communicate with our extension application, right? So this JS SDK, that is Zoho.crm connector.invoke API. This JS SDK will allow you to invoke your connector API through a widget itself. So the connector API that we created in order to create a session, right? So that API can be invoked from our widget using this particular JS SDK. So that is the first thing that we have used in our code logic. But for that connector API to be invoked, we require one data. That is, we need to pass the customer email ID in order to invoke that connector API, right? So in order to get that customer ID, we have gone ahead and used two more functionalities. So this page load event listener will essentially return you the details of the page in which the widget is loaded. So in our case, when the support technician is going to click on the button and the widget loads, the details of the page that has been where the widget is loaded, right? So the module detail and the record ID detail would be returned as part of this page load event listener. So we would get the module as cases and the record ID would be the record ID of the case in which you are clicking the button. So once I get these two details, I am going to go ahead and use another JS SDK, which is getRecord. So I will be passing the module name and the record ID that I get from page load to this particular JS SDK. So this JS SDK will return me the entire details of the particular record. So when I pass the module name and the record ID, I will get the entire details of that particular record, from which I will take the email ID of that particular case. So this email ID that I've got will be used and will be constructed as data in order to invoke our connector API. So this is an overview of the components that we have used in our widget code logic. So let me show that code that we have done over here. So using the steps that I had mentioned earlier, right? So using the z-init command, the z-validate and z-pack, I've already created a widget project which is called as Assist session. So this is the widget project that I've already created. And inside my Assist session widget project, I had mentioned that the app folder is the essential folder where you'll go ahead and add your project resources, right? So inside my app folder, the default files are already available, but I've also added some folder structure in order to segregate the files depending on its type. So I've added the style related files inside my CSS folder, the UI related files inside my HTML folder, and then the code, that is the JavaScript code that we are going to perform, right? So that code logic related files inside my JS folder. So this custom.js JavaScript file is the file which holds the JavaScript code that is going to perform our widget code logic. So as I explained in the components in our slide, the page load event listener will help you to retrieve the module name and the record ID of the page in which the widget loads. So this entity ID and the entity name, which is essentially the record ID and the module name, will be returned as part of the page load event listener. So using these two details that I've got, I'm using another JS SDK, which is getRecord. So I'm passing the module name and the record ID that I've retrieved as part of page load to this getRecord JS SDK, which will return me the entire details of that particular case. So from those details, I'm taking the customer email alone. So I fetched the customer email alone, and this customer email is constructed as the data and passed to my connector API in order to invoke it. So we saw there's a JS SDK which helps you to invoke a connector API. So this crm.connector.invoke API is the JS SDK which will help you to invoke an API that you've created as part of the connector. So I've taken the data, I've constructed the data that is needed for this connector API, and then I have invoked that connector API. So once this connector API has been invoked, the session will be created, and then the response of that session will be returned as the response of this connector API being invoked, right? So from the response that I'm getting after the session has been created, that is the remote session has been created, I'm taking the technician URL alone. So why would I need this technician URL? When we had explored our use case, we saw that when the on click of a button, the support technician would be prompted with a widget that they're going to enter into a remote session with the customer, and then on by clicking on this here keyword, they will be redirected to the Zoho Assist remote session with the customer, right? So this here keyword I have hyperlinked with the technician URL that I'm getting as response from the create session API. So that URL will redirect my support technician to the Zoho Assist remote session so that they can go ahead and proceed into a remote session with the customer. So this is the code logic that we have done as part of our widget use case requirement. So I have created this widget project, validated it and packed it. So the zipped file that I had obtained, I've uploaded or associated that zipped file inside this connected apps section. So if I click on connected apps, you can see that the zipped file of my widget project has been associated in this particular feature. So once I have associated it, I've used the internal hosting option because I want to use Zoho server to render my widget application. So after doing this, in our use case, we want to embed this associated widget as a button, right? So on click of a button, the widget is going to be prompted. So I've gone to this component section, and under links and buttons, I've created a button called as initiate a remote session, which is available in the cases module in the view details page of a case, and I've chosen the action as invoke a widget. So I've provided the location of my UI file in my widget project. So for the Assist Session widget project, inside app, I had a HTML folder, and inside that folder, I have my HTML file which displays my widgets UI. So that is the location that I've provided over here. And then I have clicked on save in order to embed a button and then associate the widget that we have created. So now the components that are required for a use case, that is the connector and the widget functionalities, are completed. So I had gone ahead and published this entire extension and then installed it in my Zoho CRM account so that we can see how the sample output functionality appears in a live CRM account. So let me go to my CRM account. So this test support is the extension where I had gone ahead and performed my extension functionalities required for my use case. So we had created a connector for Zoho Assist, right? So we have to go ahead and authorize that connector in order to establish a authorized connection between Zoho CRM and Zoho Assist. So let me go to the integration section and authorized my Zoho Assist connector. So our connector has been authorized successfully. So now a secure connection has been established between my Zoho CRM account and my Zoho Assist account. So for our use case, we saw that in the cases module, inside a particular case, right? So I'm going to enter inside a particular case, and in the view details page of that case, we have a button called as initiate a remote session. So this particular case's customer has this mail ID. So when there are scenarios where we want to go ahead and troubleshoot an issue for the particular customer through a remote session, then I can simply click on this initiate a remote session button. So my widget will be prompted and I have been notified that I'm going to enter into a remote sharing session with the below customer. So as I had mentioned, the technician URL, I've hyperlinked it to this here keyword. So when I click on here, I am redirected to my Zoho Assist remote session where I can go ahead and troubleshoot the customer's case. So while we had created the connector API, right, you remember that we had added the customer email ID as a parameter in the connector API. So that would have sent an invite to the customer as well. So for our particular case, I had given the mail ID as Lavanya's mail ID. So now she would have got an invite that she can join the remote session using that invite. So the session is loading. Let's give it a few seconds. So using the invite that would have gone to Lavanya's email, she has joined the Zoho Assist remote session. So now you can see that I have control over the customer's remote screen. So I can go ahead and troubleshoot any concern that is faced by the customer through this remote session by simply clicking a button from within Zoho CRM itself. So this is the use case that we wanted to brief you today. So once you finish the session, you can exit your remote session after troubleshooting your customer's concern. You can leave feedbacks if required or simply click on close. So what we have told is a full use case where you can just initiate a remote session with a customer, troubleshoot their concern, and then finish the remote session. So you can also, if you wish to enhance this use case, you can also log those session related details in a custom module in your extension, so that as a support technician, you can keep track of all the remote sessions that you've entered the remote sessions that you've gone with different customers at different points of time. So that will help you to be organized and keep a track of all the sessions that you have entered. So this enhancement of our use case that I had mentioned, right? So we have performed that as well as part of our post and written it in our Zoho developer community. So this is regarding the topic that we wanted to cover today, which was widgets. In our next session, that is our day 4 session, we will be exploring about building an extension for the service Zoho Desk in detail. So hope you found this session useful.